Welcome to Sanguine Arts Locavart, the podcast that features interviews with local Twin Cities artists. This activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. I'm your host, interdisciplinary performance artist Mary Prescott. Today we are speaking with Sequoia Hauck. Sequoia is a two-spirit, queer, Anishinaabe and Hupa filmmaker and interdisciplinary artist and director who creates work that indigenizes the process of art making. Their work weaves indigenous epistemologies, indigiqueer identity, and the possibilities of indigenous futurism. Sequoia has worked on and off stage with a variety of local organizations and is a 2023 Jerome Hill Artist Fellow and First Peoples Fund Cultural Capital Fellow. Welcome, Sequoia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for speaking with us today. I wanted to start out the interview talking about your new theater company that you just started with a few friends. Can you tell me a bit about that theater company?
I would love to, yeah. So it was definitely never a goal of mine to start a theater company. It was not on my 2025 bingo card. But it sort of came about and it felt like the right time. I started this theater company. It's called Mni Giizhik Theater Ensemble, with two of my dear friends, Adrian Zimiga January and Sarah Polatsky-Borzea. And we all the three of us got together and we sort of felt the need to expand. There's such a vibrant Native theater community here in the Twin Cities. And we were talking about dreams of doing shows and things that we would want to do. And we were a little upset that they weren't happening. And we felt sort of like stuck in the who's going to do this? Where is this going to be? And then we were turned to ourselves and we were like, well, why don't we just do it? And we were like, that's silly. That's really silly. And then we were like, but what if we were serious? And then we...
What if we were serious, though?
And then we were like, yeah, let's do this. And so we applied for a First Peoples Fund grant to do... It was a production grant, specifically. It was the inaugural cohort for this grant. And we were like, let's just silly apply and not even be a company yet and figure out fiscal sponsor and figure out all these things. And Sarah is connected with Joelle Peters, who's up in Canada. She's an Anishinaabe playwright, amazing playwright. And she has this show called Niizh, which is in Ojibwe Moan means the number 2. And so we read the play and we thought it was perfect to do our first show, and we received the grant, and the rest now is happening. Now we're like, oh, we have to do this.
That's really exciting. How cool.
Yeah,
did you know Joelle before you started working with the theater company?
I did not. No, Sarah knew her well. They had done a production up in Canada together and just knew each other that way. And so Sarah connected us, and that's how we all knew each other now.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And you're directing, right?
I am directing, yes. It's a very exciting show. It was Sarah's idea, actually, for us to do a full Anishinaabe show. So have all of the actors be Anishinaabe themselves. We felt that was really important because for us in our theater company, we were really thinking about why start a theater company for all these reasons, but we were really the intentionality around doing shows about this land for the people who are here, about the stories that are happening here, felt really crucial and important and a specificity for us. And so having a show it's an Ojibwe rom-com, so it's a comedy and kind of a falling in love, coming of self show, which felt like a kind of perfect timing for that as the world we're existing in, to have a little bit of joy and love somewhere. And also to highlight the amazing Ojibwe talent that is here. And so it's a 5-person cast of all Ojibwe folks. And there's Ojibwe language spoken in it. There's puppetry. There's going to be ASL. There's going to be projection. And yeah, we're going full force for this show.
The whole thing, yeah.
We're doing the whole show. And I'm directing. So yeah, I'm very excited. And it's coming together.
That's so cool. Have you done a lot of directing before, or is this maybe an earlier?
Yeah, I've been doing theater for what feels like forever. But this is definitely my first big time doing a full production as a director. And so I really love the model that Adrian and Sarah and I have set up for the company, for Mni Giizhik, is that we are all kind of producing every single show, and we're just kind of taking turns who's leading a show. So this time I'm directing because we're doing this Anishinaabe show, but Sarah and Adrian are very much holding the care and the love and the dedication for this show as well. And I'm definitely been able to be like, hey, what do I do? What should I do? I made a rehearsal schedule and I was like, can you look at it?
Yeah.
So to be able to like feed off of each other in that, is really nice.
That's so helpful to have like support from your partners, you know. That's just, it's awesome.
Yeah, we feel like that's this, like, you know, people call it the horizontal leadership or the whatever you may call it, but having the three of us be equal partners in this company has really been, I think, so far the success.
And so you were saying that you are each going to take a turn. Does that mean that the others will also be directing plays in the near future?
Yeah, we are. I don't know how much I can say. Yeah, that's official, but we have some things in the works.
Don't say what you're not supposed to say.
I won't. I'll be quiet. But I will say that, yeah, we plan to take turns. Sarah's also a director. She's an amazing director. I'm totally like looking to her to mentorship in many things, in many ways. She would probably be like, you don't need a mentor, but we always need a mentor forever. For the rest of our lives, we need mentors.
It's great to have sounding boards. You know,
exactly.
If that's all it is, then that's great. Yeah,
exactly. So we might co-direct a piece together. Sarah's probably gonna direct something. The three of us might act in something together. So yeah, whatever our dreams of putting on a production, that's sort of what is going to be our roles in it. So whether that be producer or director or be in the show, or support in whatever role that makes sense is sort of our game plan. We're also asking community what they want to see as well. So this was our like internal first little dream, was doing this show. We have some other dreams of doing shows in Dakota language and Lakota language and Anishinaabe, like full language. And so, you know, who's going to act in that and who would be in that. So we have some like dreams up ourselves, but we're also asking community, you know, what do you want to see? Do you want to put on a show? Do you want to direct something? Do you have a dream show that you've never been able to produce or do something? Marcy Rendon, who's another wonderful White Earth Anishinaabe playwright, sort of approached me specifically and was like, will you help me do this play, Sweet Revenge? And she hasn't been able to get it produced in like the 10 years that she wrote it. And I got the Jungle Theater to do a reading of it last year, 2 years ago now. Maybe.
Congrats.
Time is an illusion.
Yeah. It's great to be able to support the community with opportunities, you know?
Yeah. So that stage reading happened. We're going to hopefully do another stage reading this year, and then we're looking to produce it in 2026.
Oh,
so,
awesome.
That's just another example of like community reaching out and being able to be a platform for that. And we're also reaching out to specific people and saying like, what show do you want happen? Let's make it happen. So.
So are you doing more stuff with the Jungle Theater, or are you kind of moving around to different locations, or?
I was specifically connected at the Jungle at the time because I was on their cohort leadership structure that they were doing. And so I was a cohort member for, I believe, 2 years there. And so at the time it was a nice like merging of personal work. And this was like way before Mni Giizhik was even a dream, or even a joke pretend thought.
It wasn't even a twinkle yet.
Wasn't a smirk yet. So it was just happened to be a great opportunity that the Jungle does these readings every once in a while of local stuff or not local things. I guess it sort of just depends on what they want to show in their reading showcases. And I sort of put front Marcy's show, and then we made it happen.
So cool. That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit more about Niizh, about that play?
Yeah. It's an amazing Ojibwe rom-com written by Joelle Peters, who's an Anishinaabe playwright in Canada. It follows the character Lena Little, and she is living on her reservation up in Canada, and she is ready to leave. She's like ready to go to college, ready to sort of find something in her that she feels is missing. But she feels stuck. She feels like her dad is depending on her brother is depending on her. And then all of a sudden, her next door neighbor, who is like an auntie to her, the next door neighbor's nephew shows up. And he's from the city, and he hasn't really spent a lot of time on the reservation. And they kind of have a little like meet cute, sort of like connection, fall in love in a like very in a very way. I won't give too much away.
Yeah.
But there's a connection between these two, and it feels spiritual and grounded, and in all the many ways that a connection can be. But really, this story is about love in many forms, about love of identity, of yourself, of your language, of your culture. Love of chosen family, I think, is a great story in this, and of love of a little romantic love as well in there. But I think it's really about love of yourself as well, and acceptance of who you are and your goals and your dreams.
Beautiful.
So highlighting all of that is what we're going to do for the show.
Are you interfacing with Joelle and making decisions about your directing, or?
Yeah, we totally are. I read the script and I had so many like first thoughts right away, as a director does. And Joelle has really been awesome, and I think it's because her and Sarah are such close friends. But I've been able to have Zoom conversations with Joelle, and actually one of our actors, who plays that aunt character I was talking about, she is a deaf actress, and so the character itself is not written as a deaf character, and so she will be doing all of her lines in ASL. And me having this like wanting her to be in this role, in this character, because I read it and I knew she would fit perfectly in it. I had to connect with Joelle as well to be like, hey, if we change some parts of your show, how do you feel about that? And she was like super open and excited about this. And really the show has only been produced one other time up in Canada before it was published. And so this is, I don't know if we can technically say it's like the US premiere, because, sticky things with doing that, but it's the first time it is being premiered and shown in the United States, in Turtle Island, in this part of Turtle Island. Mm-hmm. So we're very excited to have that honor, to be able to share the story like that, and be in such connection with Joelle as well. And she's hoping to come from Canada to see it. We're trying to figure out which day, but yeah, she's very involved, which is really nice.
That's so great. And you're doing this in May. What are the dates of it?
Yeah, the performances will be May of 2025. Opening night will be May 9th. And so we're open, that's Mother's Day weekend. So we're doing a cute Mother's Day little thing, to honor all the mothers involved. But it will be May 9th, 10th, 11th. And then the following weekend, 16, 17, 18.
And where is that going to be?
It'll be at 825 Arts on University in St. Paul.
Okay, great. So cool. You were awarded the inaugural First Peoples Fund for this show. Can you tell me a little bit more about that award and how it's supporting the work?
Yeah, it was a what feels like a massive honor to receive this. It's sort of the first inaugural grant that the First Peoples Fund is doing specifically for Native production. I want to say only 4 people or organizations received this. It could be 5, but I want to say it's 4. So it feels like a huge honor when we found out that only 4 entities received this. We were like, us? What?
And you were so new.
We were so new. We were like, thank you for trusting that we will do this. Because we actually got turned down for a different grant because they were like, yeah, your feasibility is a little on the edge. And we're like, heard, we have not ever done a show together, understandably.
Yeah.
So we felt like really grateful that First Peoples Fund trusted us. I think having the relationship with them in the past of me being a fellow, and I've got other support from them for other projects as well. So I think having that camaraderie already probably helped. I don't know how they decide things.
Well, they probably saw, you have a track record with them, so they can trust that you're going to do good things with the support,
Yeah, I hope to continue that. Be like, yes, I will do what I say I will do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's important.
um,
And so
exactly.
is that for the play or is that for the theater company or both?
It's kind of for both. It's specifically, we applied to do Niizh with
Mhm.
it because they wanted to know what we were producing. And so it was sort of a shot in the dark, Hail Mary, any of those phrases, to just say, we're going to do this show, and had all these ideas and put it on paper and said, this is what we're going to do. Fund us. Help, help. And they were like, that's a great idea. Please, here you go.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool.
it's an amazing honor.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. um, this past October, you had a big film installation called They Didn't Deserve to Die that dealt with Native families who have lost loved ones to police violence. Can you tell me a little bit more about that project?
Yeah, that just wrapped up in October, and that was almost a 4-year project that I had been working on. Um, I had really taken a break from theater to focus on filmmaking, sort of spurred by the start of the pandemic, but also just by the stories that were existing in the world. And I had ended up um, in a couple documentary programs with St. Paul Neighborhood Network, which is sort of a local um, entity for teaching people documentary filmmaking, but also supporting work. There's grants through there, and there's also learning opportunities and funding through that organization. And so I was a New Angles Fellow
Mhm.
with them. And in that program, I had decided to make this film that was about loved ones lost to police brutality, because previously I had been connected from a different project with a couple families that weren't specifically Native, but had ties to other families who were Native. And then they found out that I was interested in interviewing and listening to their stories. And I was kind of shocked about how many people were willing to share.
Mm,
Um, and it was definitely, again, like, not something I sought out to do. It felt like it kind of fell in my lap. I
mm,
had been assigned to do this project with another group of people about Travis Jordan, who was murdered in Minneapolis. I want to say in 2018. And we had interviewed his family and friends and a psychologist and things, for a different project. And then from there, that's sort of how people contacted me.
mhm,
And the Native Lives Matter folks here in the Twin Cities were like, there's families in um, South Dakota and Montana who are willing to talk to you. Colorado, would you be willing to, like, hop in this car with us and go film them? And I was like, whoa.
yeah,
Yeah, I felt like I must, you know?
yeah.
And so I
It was
did.
a
And
calling.
that's kind of how it started. And um, it, from those interviews, I sort of realized that it wasn't just the fact of me documenting their stuff, to be on film and to keep it and to be the holder of that, but it was also a healing experience for them to share. Because a lot of families I've noticed in this making of this project, they are nervous. They're scared to share their stories. They're scared to talk about it. They're scared to even talk to their sister or their mother about what happened to their relative. And that holding in is really hard, I've
Mm,
noticed. And
mm,
then in the process of this film, I learned that my cousin was killed by the police before I had even started this project.
mm,
And I never met him. We'd be the same age. I was born in May and he was born in December. He has a twin sister. And so I flew out to California and I met my cousin and my aunt, who I had never met before. And my family had never talked about that we had um, this massive loss.
mm,
And so it sort of hit me that um, this happens to, like, almost every Native family, that someone is lost, someone is murdered, and no one really talks about it. The media doesn't talk about it. We as a family don't talk about it, because it's painful. It's
yeah,
hard. And
yeah.
there's also, like, a narrative of erasure. And so um, after interviewing 7 families, I sort of held on to their stories for a little while because I was taking a break from the piece a lot. I took a lot of breaks during this process, which is why it took 4 years. But I knew that I wanted some semblance of a showcase, such a weird word, but of a showing of these stories so that the families felt that there was some honor. There was something from those interviews. And I stayed in contact with all the families for those 4 years or 3 years, however long it took to get the process going. And so what happened in October was sort of like an honor ceremony. Several families came from out of town and we honored them. We had a drum ceremony for them. And then in the Northrop King building in Northeast Minneapolis, using my studio on the 4th floor, Rosie Simas's studio, and public functionaries space. We had 4 different floors. And we showcased all the films, and we had little altars built from things that I had learned about the families or gifts they had given me, and then pictures that they had shared with me I printed and put in photo album or photo frames. And the films themselves were honors. They were short, under 10-minute films that were more about who the people were, what their likes and dislikes, their favorite colors, how are they as a father, who are they to their family, things that you can't Google about these people, and less about the day they died, to really bring that like specificity and humanity to these people. And I also didn't want it to be triggering to the families. I wanted them to be able to watch it and remember their loved one in a way that they remember them. They said it's their words. And so that's what the screening was. We had a weekend of that in October.
What a beautiful way to honor them. And for the families, they don't want their loved one's whole life to be defined by the way that they died. So by presenting it in the way that you did, which is about their life, is just a beautiful way to handle it.
Yes, that was my goal.
You talked about how people kind of came to you and said that they wanted to share their story. How did you identify which people you were going to feature in the project?
Ooh, that's a great question. At first, it was anyone who was willing to be on camera. And I will clarify that I actually ended up not really showing any of the footage of these people's faces. What you see in the films is the altars that I built. It's the picture frames, it's the smudge in a bowl, it's all of these different things, a basketball being played for one of the Raven Glenn's video because he loved basketball. Because I wanted the stories to be focused on the people and not on the loved ones. And my second reason was also because it felt like a little bit of a safety thing. I didn't want these people, since so many people did feel scared to share, I was like, let's cut that out. Let's not have your face right in front. Let's have your loved ones, because that's who you're talking about. And so the 7 families are basically the 7 that were interviewed and willing to be on camera for it. I did talk to more families who weren't willing to be on camera, which was totally fine. But they were willing to share, and that's what felt important to me. I was like, I'm here, my heart is here, I'm with you. Let's talk. Just tell me about your loved one. And that's actually what I asked everybody. I said, just tell me about your loved one. And classically, everyone in a very native fashion talked for 2-3 hours. So I have many footage of, that I narrowed down to 10 minutes, and I had a team of editors and people, so I was not alone on this as well. So it was very much a group effort for the community as well. But the 7, there was 6 for a while, and then I felt called to reach out specifically to another family, the family of Dawn Bellegarde, and I was like, I knew Shelley, her sister, personally, and I reached out because I felt like we had only stories about men in the film, and I was like, I would like to highlight Dawn's story. So that was the only one that I reached out personally and was like, I'd really appreciate if I could interview you. Would you be willing? Here's the structure. So they were later than everyone else. And she also was killed more recently. So I sort of also waited to contact as well. So there's many reasons, but I felt 7 kind of filled out the sacred number of sense of stories, and I felt like her story wanted to be in this. And then the families ended up being related, like Shelley Bellegarde's family and a different family from South Dakota. They're like cousins, and I was like, of course they are. Like, so yeah, it was probably called in many ways.
Yeah. So since it took place over 4 years, or the interviewing process, I'm curious if you ever went back to any of the families later.
Yeah, I totally did. I tried to go back to all of them before we did this screening, and I was not able to go to the Montana families, just because Montana is hard to get to. I was like, how do you get to Montana without just having people who are like willing to drive you on a random week out to Montana? Because we never planned to go to Montana, actually. We had planned to go to South Dakota and then home to Twin Cities, and then we had found out about these 2 families in Billings, and they were like, will you come right now? And I was like, not gonna say no. So yeah, the Montana was like, yeah, here we are, say less. So yeah, I haven't got back to Montana, unfortunately. So that one is still on my to-do list. But the rest of the families, I went back and showed them their film before I did the full public screening, because I felt that was really important to have them have feedback, have them see it. It's their loved one, so they should go through the emotions of seeing it before the rest of the public see it.
Yeah.
So that felt really, really crucial to me before I did any screening. I was like, I must go back. And surprisingly, a lot of them were willing to show me the place that their relative passed away, like the specific spot. And, I just sort of felt honored that I was like, wow, you would bring me to such a sacred place, and such a place of grief that you would allow me to like go there. And so that's how I knew that these families really trusted me, and that I trusted them, and to have that reciprocity within ourselves, like holding such a delicate story. It kind of makes me emotional, like thinking about all this.
For sure. Yeah.
It's a process. I feel like I really know these people, and the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, it connects again. Because I really try to, for my own healing process, like a little disconnect after it happens. So like once the screening ended, I was like, let's not think about them. I need to take a break from texting the families. And that's how I've been able to keep it going, and how I hope to continue keep it going. I'm going to have a website that will be live, that where the films will exist eventually. It's still a little bit in the works, and I'm still tweaking the films, but I was like, I can't touch the films right now. Like they need to rest. I need to rest.
You need some time away from them.
But I know the families want to be able to show it to the rest of their people, because when I went back to them, I was like, let's not do a screening. This is not like me coming to where you live and screening it. Like, let's do, or actually what I sort of went was like, you screen it how you want to. I didn't want to like pressure them into any way. And most of the people wanted like a private in their living room viewing of it. And that's what I thought they were going to have. So now I know that they kind of want to share it out to people since they've seen it. And it does feel like a film a little bit that needs to be viewed in your living room, like in a space where you feel comfortable. And that's what we mimicked in the screening. We had couches and chairs and beds and things so that people could feel they were in like their living room viewing this.
Yeah, something more intimate and personal. And
so having a website is the next iteration, I think, of this.
What were the family's responses to the project?
I think they were just all so grateful that someone was taking the time to tell the stories, because so many of them, especially Paul Castaway's mother, Lynn Eaglefeather, she goes and she fights for her son all the time in the Denver she's in the Denver area, and she just goes to like every protest and everything, and she speaks his name everywhere she goes.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really like the elder of the community of the Justice families. She's known as the mom of the Justice families for many people, and she fights and she says his name, but many people are still grieving so much that they feel like they can't do that, which is so understandable. And I think that this film is like an opportunity for people to be like, that's their voice. I'm not in it at all. I didn't say anything. It's their voice. And I just sort of put it in a platform that's out into the world. So I think being able to like have something tangible that people can release and feel like they can still talk about their loved one in a way without re-traumatizing themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's still justice. It's still fighting. It's just in like a different font in a way.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that's why I'm like, the website's going to happen sooner than later, because the need to be able to share this out. But I know that so many of the families were just so grateful to this, and I just feel honored to have been a part of it. It feels silly to be like, oh, it's this project I've been doing, and I got all these grants and things, but it's like, it really feels like it's these families' stories, this family's project. I'm just kind of holding it, the holder of things.
Mm-hmm. It's really it's difficult subject matter to approach with the family who is holding the grief. And you've talked about this a little bit, but I wonder if you can say a little bit more about what it was like to document families who are sharing these stories.
Yeah, it was really hard. I will not lie. It was really,
Mm-hmm.
really hard. I think innately I've like reflected on myself over these like past 4 or 5 years of doing this, is that I'm a person who a lot of people come to sort of like feel really comfortable sharing and feel really open doing that. And so that's like a common occurrence. Like an elder will just come to me and like start talking for an hour.
You
So
you
like
have a nice open energy.
exactly, it's my Taurus. My Taurus sun really shines through there. And so I think that innately existing in me was something that I already had. That being able to sit down and turn on a camera and ease people's like nervousness or uncomfortability around that. And then I feel like I'm able to like hold a little bit of that too. But I prepped myself every single time. I had to like smudge and, do some sort of like self opening, self closing all at the same time to be able to not break down in front of these people and also like hold their stories too. But I will say that like the first family in South Dakota we interviewed, it was like 4 people we interviewed for until like 2 a.m. It was wild. And then we got in the car and went to wherever we slept. And I totally bawled in the car. I was like, oh my God. And it hit me kind of in that moment. I don't think I had such a stark reaction. Again, I think when I interviewed my cousin stuff, I felt like a different feeling because it was like a blood connection in a way. I had like a different spiritual connection to his story because he's my family. And grieving it in a different way. But it was definitely like a lot of learning boundaries and learning like how to support people who don't get to like take a break as well. I think that's something over the last 4 years I've been like, I sort of said that I don't contact these families during my break time. I don't do these things. But it doesn't ever stop for them. And I think I feel it a little bit with my cousin, but I didn't know him, so it's a different experience for me. And so being able to like be okay with still kind of talking to them occasionally, or knowing where my boundaries are in that. I think like being able to be conscious of that and learn about that and do a lot of like community support for this project. Like every time I visited somewhere, I had someone with me, either at a screening or when I traveled, just because I was like, I need some moral support for myself.
Yeah.
So being able to always have someone and never go alone, I think was really important for me as well. So just little like things that I found out that were helpful to me as like the holder, the filmmaker of this. But I think also it's a reflection of the people too, because they were able to like feel that energy off of me.
Wow, that's a lot to carry as a documentarian. It's like you're right there, you're in it, you're close, you're hearing the most intimate things about these people. Yet, there's then there's the other side of it, which is like how close can I get without getting really falling into the depths of my own despair, right? It's like that's really tough. Were there any points that you felt like you needed to step away from the project?
There were times that I didn't think I was going to completely give up on it, but I was like, I don't know how it's going to finish. I don't know how I can do it again. I don't know how, like, I kind of had to force myself into just setting up a date. Like going to Colorado and screening that film was one of the first, after I'd done all the edits, that was the first screening or viewing, the private viewing. And I had to like really boost myself up for that. I was like, got my best friend to come with me. We drove to Colorado. And I was like, okay, we just got to go. We just got to do it. Like, we just have to go. It has to happen. And I think that's like partly a tendency of mine as just like a person. Like I'm a little bit of a procrastinator and a little bit of a like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Oh, I have to do this.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of
happening.
Like put myself in a corner, but I did it on purpose so that I get my things together. And it's not because I didn't want to do it, right? Because I did. I really did. It just felt hard in many ways because I knew how tough it was going to be. And I think even doing the screening, I like looking back, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have edited more beforehand. I wish I would have, X, Y, and Z, done all of these things beforehand. But I just like couldn't muster up the energy, the strength to do it until I was like fully in the headspace for it. And I'm glad we're having this interview right now because like a month ago, I could have not talked about this project. I would have been like, we are not talking about this project. This is off the table because I'm still on my break. Yeah. Like, I really, like for reals, I would have been like, can't talk about this. Because I like thinking about it was too much. Like even something like that. But just recently I've been like, oh yeah, wait, let me respond to some of these things that I've been meaning to do. And I was like, oh, I guess the grieving has like subsided a little bit because, it was a lot to like jump back in. But I took like 6 months breaks. I took a lot of breaks and having multiple editors, so I didn't have to edit every second of every footage. I did watch all of them multiple times and I captioned everything. And then my friend did ASL interpreting for them all. So I was there and witnessed all of that. So I was really present for a lot of them, but I didn't have to go through the 4 hours of interviews for every single one. So I was really grateful for my team of people to help on that because that's really how
to have a support team.
It happened. Exactly. For real.
Is there at any point do you think you'll do another installation of everything?
I hope so. A couple people have reached out to me to put it on. I think it's not going to exist in the same capacity because it was all 7 films on different floors. It was like, a giant space in the Northrop King building. So I don't think I have access to that kind of space again. And it kind of needs a giantness to exist. But I think in a smaller capacity, maybe 2 films playing at once, or maybe they like take turns and somehow all 7 play. I haven't quite figured out the schematics of it all. But I think like the Minneapolis American Indian Center might have it. We're in like late discussions. There's a couple other small orgs that have like little rooms that 1 or 2 could play in. But I'm also hoping to bring like a proper screening to the families too.
Mm-hmm.
Having the internet availability is great for access of many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I think something about having an in-person screening, us being together, bodies in space, is really healing. So I think somewhere down the line, I don't know when time shows for that, but to be able to bring it, it would probably happen in Denver again, would be the first one, I would assume. Or if I could ever get to Montana. Someone help me get to Montana, because that's, I don't know why it's so hard to get to Montana. But I'm hoping to do like local screenings instead of just like private viewings.
And then, so from what I understand, you built physical altars also in those spaces, right? So is that something that you would also bring when you're showing it in the future?
Yeah. My studio space right now is like boxes of like labeled with their names. Like this is Braven's box and all of his pictures and his basketball and his things. So those would come with too.
And are they actually things that were in possession of the people?
They're not. Ryan Gibbs' family did give me like the Justice for Ryan like bracelets and t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that is physically from the family. I have some of those things. The mother of Lynn Eaglefeather of Paul Castaway gave me some sage. I think it's all been burnt so far, but who knows? I could potentially have some around. But I don't think I have any of their actual possessions. I more have like gestures of things in physical form. So like Paul Castaway loved starbursts. So I've always had starbursts and Gatorade like on his altars. So it's like a representation of things that they like, not actual items.
Do any of the families, well, you mentioned that some of them are related, right, with each other?
Apparently. I think so, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Did they see the films of the other people that were involved? And
yeah, they at some point they all knew who was the stories were each about. I don't remember when in the process I was like, here are the 6, 7 films, but I was keeping everyone updated. But I think it was the screening in October. It was really the first time they got to see the other people's. I think I always showed my cousin's film because I edited that one first because it felt right to create that one in the world first. So I always showed it Richie's film, and I then did Paul's. So those 2 almost everybody saw because they were the first one done. But not everyone saw all of them until that day in October. And I think it was also really nice for these families to feel community in that, like feel seen and heard by other people as well. Because so many of the stories were so similar. It was like I could copy and paste the same things that were being said. And so I think just to be able to know that that exists for someone else was really affirming for these families.
Yeah. Those feelings feel very alone, but then to just have, not that you wish that for anybody else, but just to know that there is somebody else who kind of understands what you're going through, you know?
Exactly.
To shift the subject a little bit, I wanted to ask generally about your art making practice. Who or what you're inspired by?
So many things. I do a lot of work around water, and so I feel like I'm really inspired by water all the time. It's funny, like all the like little fireflies all of a sudden came into my brain. I was like, ooh, that's an interesting one. I know. I was like, how cute. Yeah, I think there's so many things that really inspire me. I I read a lot of like poetry and poetry books. Leanne Simpson's work is really beautiful. I'm reading a Diane Wilson book right now. I feel like a lot of Native community has been really inspiring. I did a project about Zikala Shah, who was like the first Native composer, written, sort of documented as the first Native composer. And I was like looking back at something that she was talking about in like the early 1900s, late 1800s. And she was like, her quote she talks about how her husband at the time, or her boyfriend at the time, was a doctor, and how she was like, what I do as an artist is just as important what you do as a doctor.
Hear, hear.
Cheers. And I think about that all the time. It pops into my head like more than I can even imagine. And just thinking about like how much since like the beginning of time, artists have been doing work like this, and we have been on the same page. I was like, oh yeah, we have been fighting this like same fight, saying the same things. And so I feel like that idea that I'm a part of this like wave of something, of this continuality of this is really inspiring. So sometimes when I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like we are all, it might feel like the same fight, but it's like if we stop, then it stops. So we all have to keep going. So I feel like that has been something that has been really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, art is essential and you are essential. So thank you for being an artist.
Thank you for being an artist. Thank us all. We must. Like, I feel like also praising our fellow artists needs to be a thing too, because it's hard out here.
Oh yeah, it's hard. It's lonely and it's grueling and exhausting and fun and
joyous and like kind of the best thing ever, but also so hard.
Yeah, and just the learning. I love learning, and being an artist is like such a great learning tool.
And it can apply to like everything. I feel like, oh yeah, I know how to do that because this silly art job I had. And people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it.
If people want to see and hear your work or learn more about you, where's a good place for them to find that information?
I would feel like my website is a good place for people to go. It's sequoiahauck.com. I also have an Instagram that I potentially could say things on. I did just make a professional one that I like haven't posted on. But Sequoia Hauck on Instagram, I think it might be sequoia.hauck is the professional one. Yeah, Mni Giizhik Theater will have a website soon, but we're on Facebook as well. And so people can look at that for updates about Niizh and future Native storytelling that we'll be doing.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Sequoia. It was a great interview, and I really enjoyed speaking with you. To the audience, thank you for listening, and this has been another edition of the Sanguine Arts Locavart podcast.
Thank you.